This meeting of the Group Insurance Committee is called to order at 4:04 p.m. Next, we have roll call. Rachel, will you please take roll call?
Jeff Bazzo,
Present.
Eric Diamond. No, okay. Mike Dixon,
Here.
thank you. Tony McMillan.
Here.
Vicky Cooper.
Here.
Dawn Echeverry.
Here.
Robert Munson.
Here.
Joseph Silvera. And Mary Beth Akers. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move into our items for presentation, discussion, information, and/or action. First, we have the presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance Claims Experience Report as of May 2024. Mr. Lloyd Barnes is here to go over that.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance Services for the record. Looking at the month of May, as we don't have June yet, just wrapping up June actually as we speak. So Exhibit 1, as you can see there, the employee counts for the current year running about 2.2% higher than last year at 7,100. Dependent units are pretty much flat, and total dependents are also mostly flat. Paid claims for the current year is running 5.9 million versus basically the same 5.9 million, so just slightly under at negative 0.7%. For a composite cost of $825.74 this year versus $850, so down about 3%. Looking at the fixed costs, running about $382,000 this year per month versus $387 last year, down 1.4%. For total plan costs of $6.28 million versus $6.33 million last year, so again pretty flat. And composite costs, because our employee counts are up a bit, are running about $879 versus $905 last year. So all in all, again for the month over year comparison, fairly stable. Again, also on the large claims, still very early, but current year we're running about 7 large claims, so not material at this point, but those tend to catch up to us. Looking at our graph on Exhibit 2, our total claims costs, our rolling 12-month claims cost per employee has been ticking down a bit over the last couple months, which is good news. We entered into this cycle with that fairly flat, so that it is good news that that does seem to be trending down currently. And when we look at Exhibit 3, when we look at the total plan costs by month, I'll just focus in on May. Again, we had on line 10, we had $4.7 million in employee claims for the month, compared to 4.6 last year, about 2.8% higher. For dependent claims, ran 1.5 million compared to a total of 1.69 last year. So currently they're running about 2.5% lower, as we've already reviewed. And when we roll it all together, 6.3 million, and that's compared to this year's average of 5.9 and last year's of also 5.9. So overall, you can see there at the very bottom, composite cost per employee at 936 is a little bit higher than last year's average and quite a bit higher than this year's average. So May was a slightly higher month, but overall, again, claims cost for the per person per year is still pretty favorable. Moving forward, I'll let you go through the details of exhibits 4 through 12, or through 11, and we'll go to Exhibit 12, which is our large claims. Again, started to track those, we start tracking those at $212,000. And you can see there, as I mentioned, we are starting to now see quite a few more start to hit the radar, which again is not super concerning and not atypical, but this is the time when they do start to add up and start to hit the radar. At this point, in Exhibit 13, none of them have exceeded the $425,000. So with that, I'll answer any questions on May's claims report.
Does anyone on Teams have questions for Lloyd on this item? No? All right. So no questions on this item, so that closes item 2.01. Next, we'll move on to item 2.02, presentation, discussion, and possible action to provide a recommendation to the Board of Trustees of changes to the Washoe County School District's health plan regarding a premium rate increase of 2.57% and potential plan changes for plan year 2025. This item is for possible action. We have Lloyd with us again to present this item. Before we hand it over to Lloyd, since we have folks on Teams and in the room, the way I'd like to handle this today, is after Lloyd gives his presentation on the numbers, go through one at a time so everyone has an opportunity to ask questions. And then after we have questions answered, then we can go through and provide input in the discussion before we take a motion. So with that, Lloyd, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance Services. So what we're going over now is the follow-up and follow-through from the conversation from last meeting. So our projection, our rate projection estimate for 2025 rates came in at the 2.57 as discussed last meeting. At that meeting, it was requested to see 2 additional options for rate adjustments, and you can see those here. One was essentially half of the 2.57, which came, we're showing that at 1.3, so you see the numbers there. And then there was also a request to look at what a 1% adjustment would do to the rate. So you can see those in the exhibits or in the attachments as presented. And then there was also a request, which I'll go over in a little bit more detail, to look at some potential plan design changes as has been done in the past. And so we dusted off some of the previous matrix or menu of potential changes, updated them for currency, and are laying those out accordingly. So the way you read this, just for everyone's edification, is each of these boxes would be a couple of different, each of these boxes are different categories of change, and then within that you might have 1 or 2 different approaches or options. And again, this process is certainly not exhaustive and certainly not the only way to handle it. It's just things that you might want to consider and things that seem reasonable and within the scope of the changes, of the increases that you're looking at. So you can see there in the out-of-pocket max category of change, you can see option 1 and option 2. And you can see there the current plan design at $4,000 out-of-pocket max for an individual, in-network, $8,000 out-of-network. For family, it's $8,000 and $16,000. A potential option would be going to $4,509 and $9,000 and $18,000. The benefit change value is 0.73% of benefits. That's specific to the medical plan. How much does it impact the medical plan? And then that $371,000 is the financial estimate of what that dollar amount would be. And then the overall plan impact would be 0.46. So that would be what you would apply to any increase that would be the increases that are being proposed. So that would come off of that increase. So that hopefully that everyone's following that. So that's the out-of-pocket max options. Scenario 2 or option 2 would be the deductible options. You can see there are a couple of different deductible scenarios. One taking it from 500 to 750, another taking it from 500 to 1,000. And then carrying it on down, some minor changes in primary care physician copays, specialist copays, the carryover deductible scenario, and then similarly on the HSA plan and then on the prescription drug plan. So I think everyone generally can follow along with that, but if anyone wants to go over any of these in more detail, happy to do that.
Thank you, Lloyd. So we'll start with our folks on Teams. Vicky, did you have any questions or clarifications you need from Lloyd?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
No, I'm good so far. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Dawn?
Nope, all good.
Okay, we'll bring it back to this room. Tony? Okay. Rachel?
No questions, but I just want to comment, I really appreciated the percent of total plan savings in there. That made it really easy to compare. Thank you.
All right, Robert? No questions? I don't have any questions either. So before we get to discussion, do we have any public comment on this item?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, so for discussion, we'll just go in reverse order here. So Robert, we'll start with you.
So we're discussing the whole thing is
Yep.
open? Okay. My concern with plan changes is that we cheapen the plan. Also, I worry when we raise deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums and things like that, that we nickel and dime our members and cheapen the plan. And so when I look at the savings compared to, raising rates, $5, $7 a month, I think if it's me, I'd rather have the increase in the premium slightly than be nickeled and dimed as we go. So personally, I don't see anything in the rate change or in the plan changes that I feel is worth my consideration.
Thank you, Robert. Rachel?
Robert said what I was going to say, but much better. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Tony?
Yeah, first, we have a couple members in the audience here, and I think they need to understand maybe a little bit of what happened at the previous meeting, where we were recommended a 2.57 rate increase. There was a lot of robust discussion that our plan performance, as you saw in the first presentation, we're running percentages less and not increase, which last year we reduced our increase from 8 to 6, I believe. And we thought we'd be running in the red as a result. And to our benefit, the plan is outperforming what we thought. Now, at the last meeting also, Robert's comment was, if we don't have a small or modest increase this year, then, or next year maybe, or whatever, then all of a sudden we get hit with that 6 or 8%. And that's a lot harder on members and the districts and families. So that's where a lot of this discussion has gone. And I would agree on the deductible, nickel and diming, more out-of-pocket expenses is more money from members, as opposed to maybe a 1%, or 1.3% rate increase, I think is a much more favorable avenue to go than doing deductibles from my perspective.
Thank you, Tony. Dawn?
Same. It's those out of pocket with deductibles is what really gets to our people later. But I also know we need to be cautious because we don't want to see a high increase I'd rather see the small increments like we are seeing now. And looking at the national average, we're just doing amazing. So even at the 2, that's incredible when I'm seeing 13 for some plans across the United States.
Thank you, Dawn. Mike?
Thanks, Jeff. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Robert, everything you said, I certainly agree with. And I go back to a couple conversations that we've all had. Tony, you've brought it up a few times. I think I'd be interested in learning more about how much we have overall. I think we refer to usually as like the reserve amount that we keep carrying over that we're eating into to cover the red. Like, how much of that cash is maybe, would we be comfortable with to continue using to offset a little bit of the higher costs? Maybe Robert, with the background you have, you could talk a little bit too, just your history of the group. What's kind of a number that is a comfortable number to say like, hey, we need to at least have this amount of money sitting in that account as a safe reserve to be comfortable. I'm just wondering if we can use a little bit more of that to help offset costs a little bit this round. Just my thought right now. We can talk about that later too.
Right.
There's more information coming up.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Vicky?
I remember that, I think it was last year when we were.
Oh, sorry, Vicky, can you speak a little louder or get closer to the mic? We're having trouble hearing you.
Is that better?
It's a little bit better, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I agree with everybody. It's, what we're saying about not nickel and diming, and I know we have to raise rates. Everything is going up, and so I agree with doing rate increase.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, Mike, to answer sort of answer your question from earlier, last year, so FY23, we ate into the fund's net position by $10 million. And then this year, when we had I can't remember, it must have been 2 meetings ago, when we had the presentation with actuals through March 31st, we had eaten into the net position by another $2 million. So even with the slightly lower rate increase and the plan performing much better compared to last year, we're still seeing a $2 million loss in the fund. I believe it was about that much. I don't have the total net position number with me right now. I can't remember where that was at exactly. But I just want to give you some of the information on how much we've used out of the net position over the last 2 years. And then I guess for me, I also agree about, not going after the plan design changes and nickel and diming our members. I'd rather see us go with 2.5% or 2.57 rate increase to offset any future significant increases. Dawn, you mentioned, as high as 13% increases in other areas. That we could be 1 year away from that. You never know. It could just take a bad year. So I'd rather have us, my personal opinion is taking the chunk right now that the district funded at the 2.57%, and then seeing where this plays out in the future. Anyone else have any comments they want to make? Robert
Munson. Looking at the 2.57%, that's about a $12 increase for the month. And correct me, I'm not a math person, but around $12 for an individual, and $19, basically $20 for the whole family per month increase. And certainly that hits some of our members. It also is going to hit our retirees because they don't have the district paying that. But if you look at the other two options, at the 1.3, it's only a $6 increase. Even if we took the 1% and went to 2%, it's a $10 increase and $14 increase. I mean, barely get a latte for $10. So I think that when we're talking about the reserve funds, when I first got on this committee, the first couple of years, all of the past years had been in the negative. And it was really hard to build up a fund. And the stronger the fund is, when you do have one of those anomaly years where they come and we're looking at 10 or 12%, it's easier then to say, okay, well, we're not going to go 10%, we're going to do 4% this year, and then look at next year because we have a big enough fund balance to weather a year and to do this over time. Rather than, and when we did that, we did take it over time. We ended up not seeing the increases we thought we were going to necessarily see. But if we had not had that fund balance at a healthy balance, we would have been making a much harder decision because we would have had to go a lot higher. So I think that raising it, 1.5% this year and 1.5% next year is much more favorable than being hit with a 5 or 6% down the road. So having a healthy fund balance, I think, is important. We don't need it to be, huge, but we do need to have that, especially being self-funded and having to pay the bills and not knowing what inflation is going to look like a year or two down the road.
Thanks, Robert. Any further comments from the folks on Teams? No? All right. Then I guess we can entertain a motion.
Can I?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Sorry, Rachel.
Just getting lost in things. So I really like the option of, because the fund balance continues to be at a healthier spot than I've seen it in my 5 years here. And although it is hemorrhaging a little bit, we are still in close to $30 million. I don't remember the exact figure. And I would like this organization to really consider the 1.3% increase following the 6% that we did last year. Just because that was such an impact to those folks that it does impact, that a little buffer here, and knowing that we're probably going to have to increase again next year, and we'll get there. I think that would be an easier pill to swallow.
Thank you, Rachel. Tony?
This is just a question on the agenda says regarding a premium rate increase of 2.57 for plan changes. Can we make a motion at a lower amount?
Sarah, did you hear that?
I did. So I was looking at the agenda and I was a little bit concerned that it was so specific. However, there is some authority in the Attorney General's open meeting law manual that if it's related to it, and you also have underneath there, you have attachments where you show options of the different potential rate increases. I think there's like a 1%. You go through potential rates, depending on which one you want to do. There's some options there as the attachments. So I would have preferred that you guys didn't say exactly 2.57%, but because you have the attachments of different options, I think it sufficiently notifies the public that you could potentially go with those other options rather than having to stand firm on the 2.57%. But it isn't as clear as I would have preferred if you are going with those other options, but I think we would be able to argue it.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So just to be clear, we would need to choose one of the three options in front of us. Is that correct?
Yes, I think those are the only ones that have been kind of noticed to the public as potential options for you guys to be considering.
Okay. All right. So you're comfortable with us moving forward?
If
Sarah?
it's on one of those options.
Okay.
If it's on one of the options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we've had quite a bit of discussion here. Robert, did you want to make a
Jeff?
motion? Is that what you were waiting for?
Yeah. I'd
Jeff?
like-
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, Dawn?
Sorry. I had a clarifying question for Sarah real quick.
Okay.
Sarah, as long as we don't go over 2.57, isn't that the real issue in open meeting law?
Well, I usually would have in the heading put up to, it says 2.57. However, underneath it says 1.0 and then 1.3 and then 2.57. So at the very minimum, the agenda at least does notice the public that those are options you're considering. So that's really the key for the heading, is whether or not it sufficiently notifies the public that that's an option that could be considered for them to come and give public comment on. So while not as precise as I would have liked, I think you can go with one of those three options because those are noticed on the agenda, but you're generally correct if it would have said up to 2.57%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Robert?
I'll move to adopt a 1.3% increase for the fiscal year starting in 2025 insurance fund.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that. Sorry.
All right, Rachel with a second. Okay, any further discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, we'll throw it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion of recommending a 1.3% rate increase, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Jeff, were there any in opposition?
No, no one replied to that. Thank
Okay,
you,
so
Lori.
it's unanimous.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Hold on. Lloyd, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. All right, moving to the next item, item 2.03, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance Wellness Program Report to cover current events and programs as of May 2024, and this item is for information and discussion only.
Thanks, Jeff. Mackenzie Howard for the record. So this summer, we tried something new with the wellness program. Our goal was to partner with 2 community organizations to offer opportunities for our employees and their families to engage in more exercise over the summer, with the goal of building those habits when they have more time over the summer. So hopefully they carry over into the school year. So we partnered with our Jazzercise program. It's a local organization. It's located over off of Mill Street. There's lots of different programs and classes throughout the day. So this focuses not just on physical health, but also emotional and mental health as well. And then the other option we offered was a cycling program, and we partnered with Sierra Bicycle Company. And this is over just in Sparks. And they are focusing more on physical health, but they bring in a lot of nutrition aspects as well. Both organizations want to continue to offer the program into the fall, and it seems to be the feedback I've heard so far is that employees want to continue, so that's exciting. But next month when we meet, I'll bring back more data on what the summer participation looked like.
Any questions for Mackenzie? Robert?
Just curious, for the wellness program, are they going to do any kind of wellness fair this year, or is it just going to be the individual appointments?
We'll be at every major high school, and we'll have a few sites here. We'll also work with our vendor to have specific Saturdays. So I think there's going to be around, off the top of my head, 14 events. Yeah.
Any questions from the folks on Teams?
No.
No? All right. All right, Mackenzie, thank you for your presentation on that item. Okay, moving to item 2.04, approval of the minutes of the May 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Group Insurance Committee. This item is for possible action. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No.
Okay, thank you. So once you've had a moment to review, if you're ready to make a motion, we'll be ready for that. Robert?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented for the May 22, 2024 meeting.
Do we have a second?
It's Rachel, I will second
second
that. Oh,
We'll give that one to Vicky.
good plan.
All right.
I didn't know if you could hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? No? All right. So now we'll take a vote on the approval of the minutes of the May 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Group Insurance Committee. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to our closing items. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 28th, 2024. This meeting is adjourned at 4:35 p.m.